Okay, we're recording and take one.
Nice.
Anyway, okay. All right. Hey guys, welcome back to the Modern Samurai Project podcast. Today we have a dear friend of mine, AJ Zito of Practical Performance, Shooting and Gunsmithing. Today's going to be an awesome show, man, because, AJ is a very humble individual, but he is a person that has probably one of the most complete resumes, even though we don't give a shit about resumes. But there's one that's super cool, man. You want to kind of go over it. He has one of the most complete resumes. He's one of the best shooters, one of the best trainers, one of the best gunsmiths that you've never heard about. So we are going to conquer that today. So before I'm not going to do your intro, brother. You do your intro. Like I told you before, stop being humble. Knock it out.
Okay. So my bio, pretty much I started off in the Army during Iraq, Afghanistan time frame. I got in 06. Spent about three and a half years there. Started off in artillery, and then we ended up in Iraq and kind of switched over to a infantry type mission, even though we were still tasked artillery. So while I was there, got to do some cool stuff, uh, raids, kind of land ownership stuff, a lot of QRF, quick reaction force stuff. And I also got tasked out for certain PSDs, private security details. So that kind of led me or gave me an idea of where I wanted to go. One specifically, I got tasked out to the counter assault teams for Vice President Cheney. So that, that was pretty cool. It was very short-term gig, but it kind of showed me like, hey, there's this whole other world of stuff out there I might be interested in doing. So time went by, got back stateside, had to kind of decide, was I going to stay in the military? Was I going to go do something else? And for one reason or another, I decided to leave the military and pursue the private sector. So I got out and I decided, hey, I'm going to give this contracting thing a try. So I went to a school in Colorado for 30 days ish and kind of started getting into executive protection and private security detail work. And once I got out of there, I actually ended up moving to Arizona for the first time and just working executive protection stuff, guarding CEOs. A lot of the stuff we did was counter stalking kind of stuff. So people that were getting stalked, we would kind of do our thing, protect them. Did some stuff for writers and, noted individuals for a while. And then at the same time, they were standing up a private security detail program specifically focused on Iraq, Afghanistan, and, all OCONUS stuff. So I went over there. They asked me, I went through the program, and was the program, they asked me if I wanted to teach at the program. And I said, sure, why not? And that kind of started me into the teaching portion of things. So while time was going on, I was waiting for contracts, applying for contracts. I was teaching all the time, specifically for private security details and executive protection. And I did that for about 4 years-ish. And at the same time, I was like, hey, this teaching gig's kind of my thing. So I opened up my own company, my first company at the time. So after I did that stuff, I had my first training company. Actually, before all of this, I went to the Military College of Vermont, Norwich University. That kind of started my progression. I actually went to military school basically my entire life, but that place kind of started me, I should say, on teaching. I had an instructor there who was in charge of a special unit. I worked with their mountain rescue team. I wasn't on the rescue team, but worked with them at the time. And this guy, legendary 10th Special Forces Group guy, Joel McQuinney, kind of got me started on this teaching thing, and it really opened my eyes to how, number one, difficult teaching is, but how rewarding teaching is as well, especially when you're transferring information that guys get. So that kind of started the ball rolling, and it just went from there. Everything I did after that kind of picked up. So fast forward 2009, 10, I'm teaching, working executive protection stuff and working PSD stuff. I was working for a lot of well-known guys in the industry while I was teaching. Some guys from the Hamid Karzai detail, early on PSD guys, original triple canopy guys. So I was working for them, and we were talking about, hey, we're gonna put this show on the road and really, take off and do this full time. Great, man. Let's do it. And then fast forward like 6 months, and we all quit the company due to certain differences of opinion with the leadership of the company versus the instructor staff of the company. So after that, I pretty much went into teaching full time, but I was sitting there going, man, I need something to do because, number one, this contracting thing's getting kind of old, especially waiting around, because I can't tell you how many contracts I applied to, and pretty much my whole contracting time was teaching under contract. I didn't get to go anywhere overseas with contracting, which was really disappointing to me. But so I did that, and I said, man, I need something else to do. And at the time, I was pretty much fixing all the equipment at the company I was working for at the time. And I said, well, I like guns. I like building guns, working on guns. Why don't I go get like a certificate and kind of do this thing while I'm waiting on other stuff? So I ended up heading out I was living in Chicago at the time, headed out to Prescott, Arizona, and went to Yavapai Gunsmithing School out here. Loved it, and spent 2 years in their regular program, then got invited into their master program. Did that, and before I got out of school there, they offered me a teaching job there as well. So I started teaching at the college. I still teach at the college. I'm their handgun instructor, pistol instructor for building handguns. And now I kind of got to pursue my passion of 1911s and 2011s, really high-end guns, performance guns. So, and all sorts of different avenues and pieces, all related to the same kind of industry, I should say. So, yeah.
Outstanding. As a beneficiary of your overall gunsmithing knowledge, and you just don't work on 1911 and 2011s, right? You know all the whole gambit of plastic guns and yada yada. You worked on my trigger and my Gen 5 Glock 34, and it is glorious. It is glorious. So, okay, that's awesome. So, but as we all know, people can have resumes and they can't shoot. At least pistols, rifles, whatever. But let's talk about pistols and stuff. So you were one of the guys that has that resume, right? Military college, military service, executive protection detail, gunsmithing, yada yada. All people of individual experience that I've met before that can't hit the broadside of a barn with a pistol, right? You, however, are not those people, right? At the risk of sounding kind of like a dick, right? It takes a lot to impress me, right? Especially when I usually come in, I don't expect anything. If you do well, awesome. If you do great, it's like a surprise for me these days, God, that would come up like a dick, but whatever. You, however, are one of those individuals that stood out at the beginning when you hosted me out. I guess now, last year, right? As we're recording this on the 1st, yeah. as an individual that right off the bat had some next level talent, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And I don't give that out lightly, right? There are plenty of people that are very well known in this industry that are great shooters, but whatever, dude. You know,
I
uh,
appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about shooting. How did you have? I mean, was there anything in your resume that contributed to that? Is there another part of your shooting regimen or experience that we haven't talked about yet that lent to that? So go ahead.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'll be the first to tell you, I honestly did not get any real shooting skill or ability out of the military whatsoever. You know, we were on M4 carbines the entire time, red dots or ACOGs, and cool. But if you could basically hit whatever you were shooting at, you were considered good. Like I never qualified anything below expert
Mhm.
in the military. And the military, except for certain special operations billets or some MP billets, you really don't touch a handgun. I mean, I probably shot a handgun 4 or 5 times, maybe my entire time in the military. So getting out of the military and knowing that, hey, we don't carry long guns for executive protection details. So I kind of figured, hey, I need to figure out this handgun thing. And I had shot handgun before. In fact, when I was in college, I shot some handgun competitively in college. We kind of established this IDPA team almost.
Mhm. Mhm.
And actually, it's funny you mention it. Uh, I was listening to your Jose Gordon interview, and I have a feeling Jose and I have actually met before. He was talking about when he ran the team over at uh,
West
West
Point.
Point,
Yeah.
and we actually helped facilitate that competition, the All Service Academy competition, as the senior private military college in the country.
Oh, that's
We
awesome.
kind of put
Okay.
it all together. Yeah. So it was funny listening to that. I was like, hey, I know exactly where we might have seen each other before.
Oh,
So
that's epic, dude. Small world, right?
yeah,
Small world.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
well, I mean, but then again,
So
when you start digging into things, dude, it's like Jose Gordon is like the Kevin Bacon of the tactical world, right?
right.
There's only 6 levels of separation from Jose Gordon. So anyway,
So I had done some pistol shooting before, and I did okay. Um, and fast forward, I shot a pistol maybe 4 or 5 times in the military. Got out of the military, knew I was already carrying a pistol almost daily um, at the time, and then getting into executive protection, I was like, hey man, this is like my only system I can use right now
yeah.
because no one's running to the car to get the carbine. That doesn't happen.
Oh, wait a
So
minute. That doesn't happen?
yeah,
You don't
we
use your pistol to get to your long gun in the
yeah,
streets?
sure. Let me tell you how that works.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of like dope bags. They don't go ever. So uh, yeah, so that kind of picked up my pistol shooting, and I gained a lot of skill. I'll tell you what really kind of got me on the real pistol uh, skill level kind of acceleration, I guess. And it was um, Todd Green's website,
Hmm.
uh, and I forget who turned me onto it, and I just saw the things that guys were doing, and I thought, hey man, I'm pretty good with a gun, you know. And then you look at like the drill of the week thing they had going for a
Yep.
while,
Yep.
and I was like, Psh, I'll go shoot this, and just got my dick stomped. It was not even funny. So that kind of fueled that, and I said, man, really need to work this stuff. So I started doing a lot of stuff with that, put up my training journal and stuff like that. And then I started getting into competition, and that drove everything. That was super eye opening, pistol wise. Like, man, I know a lot of guys that are good with guns. I'm pretty good with a gun, and these dudes are just on another level.
Mm-hmm.
So, like anyone, I could either kind of sit there and go, "Yeah, well, I'm good enough with a gun," or I could recognize that, hey, there's a deficiency in either my training or my shooting or whatever, and this is where I want to go. How do I get there? Because that's what I want to be. So that's what I did.
Yeah, because
Um,
that gynecologist is pushing my shit in.
exactly. Yeah, I run PSDs. I'm former military. What are you? Yeah, dude, I'm a dentist. Crap.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I better get better. So,
Yeah. Or you ask that guy a question about how he's going to run the stage, and he puts his oxygen mask down, and he tells you, and then he still beats you,
yep,
and then he
true
still
story,
beats you.
man. True story. There's a dude out here, out in Arizona, hobbles from position to position and just cleans house
Yeah.
on some of
Yeah.
these stages.
Yep. It's all about
So,
efficiency, right? So awesome. So I want to kind of get back to the shooting part of it, right? But one of the questions that I had asked you before when I was out there was, and I kind of want to clear this up, the ambiguity, right? What is the difference between an armorer and a gunsmith? And I
yeah.
need you for the audience to be brutally honest here. Let's hurt some feelings, because there's are dudes out there that are perpetrating that they are gunsmiths and they're not. So what is the qualification basis or qualification difference between an armorer and a gunsmith?
Okay. So here's basically how this works out. An armorer can take apart and put back together a gun and swap parts on a gun, right? They can swap springs, they can, change sights out maybe. And that's about their level of expertise. They can tell you, hey, your barrel's worn out, you should get a new one, right? And outside of that, that's about it. A gunsmith, a real gunsmith, understands how, number one, the gun is actually built and what surfaces interact with other surfaces. What, take triggers, for instance, right? So we did the trigger on your 34.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, an armorer can do exactly what everyone at home can do and take a bunch of pieces and parts and springs, throw them in a gun, and call it a custom gun, right? That's not gunsmithing, and that's not a custom gun. Okay. Understanding how the sear geometries work, how spring ratios affect cycle time and feeding, and understanding the 7 cycles of operation in a gun, that's what gunsmiths do. And really it'll boil down to this as well. Like, when someone says to me, yeah, I build guns, okay, and I say, oh, cool, so do I, what do you build? And they go, ARs and Glocks. Bro, you don't build shit, okay? You assembled something. You assembled an erector set. That is it. So think about this, right? You've seen my shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
The two big money makers in that shop are my mill and my lathe. Okay. In order to build a rifle, for instance, right, I need to turn the barrel, thread the barrel, set the headspace, set the chamber depth, do all these things, set the barrel gap or bolt gap, all these little things that just go into basically screwing a pipe onto another pipe. Okay. Uh, an armorer cannot do that. He
Mm.
does not he does not possess the skills or the understanding to, number one, run the machines, and number two, really understand, the pressure curves based on how much barrel gap you have. They drop a gauge into something and say, yeah, it's good or it's not good. That's not the same as gunsmithing. And understanding, like, your trigger. Okay. We adjusted torque points on your trigger. Show me an armorer that knows how to adjust torque points. That doesn't happen, and most of them don't even understand what what makes a glass rod brake trigger versus a rolling brake trigger. So that's the difference between gunsmiths and glorified armorers, essentially.
And not to bag on, I mean, there's some good
No,
purposeful armorers, right? I mean, if I need somebody to do XYZ and I just don't want to mess with it, I don't necessarily need to be paying gunsmith prices.
true.
Right.
True. And you got to think of it like this, right? You have different, much like in the medical field, different levels of care, right? Your first level of care outside of yourself would, in the gun world, would be an armor. Someone that's familiar with that system, trained by the factory to adjust a gun and bring it back to essentially working factory specs. A gunsmith is like the surgeon or doctor level of that, taking it to the next level of care.
So when someone says they're a gunsmith, right, to you, and you feel like going down that rabbit hole, what are some of the questions you ask? Do they have to have a college degree? Can a person be a legit gunsmith and not have gone to a college? Maybe they were a Padawan for another gunsmith, blah, blah, blah. Explain a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. So we essentially have two types of gunsmiths out there. Guys that went my route, where I actually went to a program and learned general gunsmithing and then kind of worked into a specialization with 1911s and 2011s. That's one route you can go. The other route is, much like you said, someone that's going to go work with another gunsmith and probably specialize in something with no formal education. I'll tell you right now, one of the guys I apprenticed under had no formal gunsmith training, and he is possibly one of the best 1911 builders in the world. But no actual school learning. He worked in several shops for several individuals, learned the ins and outs of the 1911, and that's all he did. That's great. And you can be an excellent gunsmith like that. But it also makes you a specialized gunsmith. Mm-hmm. So typically we see they only work on certain things. And don't get me wrong, you can go work for a general gunsmith and get a lot of education. You don't need the degree. But if you are working in a mom and pop shop, not that anything's wrong with that, and all you're doing is changing sights and changing springs, that's not gunsmithing. So there is a difference there.
Yeah, I always find it funny. So there's a thing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's what do they call it? It's the Pan Am's black belt, right? The dude left Rio de Janeiro with a blue belt, and when he landed in America, all of a sudden Pan Am Airlines gave him his black belt.
Yep.
Right. I find the comparison with armorer and gunsmithing to be the same. The dude left the plane in Pennsylvania as an armorer, and when he landed for some reason in California, all of a sudden now he's a gunsmith, right? So my other analogy to that is it's lineage, right? So that guy that trained under that guy, if he's like, oh, you're a gunsmith, oh, I am too, where'd you train, blah blah blah, you would go Yavapai, college. He would go, oh, I trained under yada yada, and you would go, gotcha. Legit
for sure,
right? Or if he went, yeah, dude, big ammo guns. I worked in the back for 5 years.
Right.
It's almost like, and we'll talk about this a little bit, it's almost like competitors, right? Guys who say their background is in competitive shooting, but they don't list their classification.
Indeed.
They don't list their classification. What does that mean? That means they're C or D class, or they only shot outlaw matches. Right. Yep. But they got to put something on their resume. And all of a sudden, that's weird. You're nowhere on the lookups anywhere, bro.
How is it you have shot for so many years in competition and not received any classification?
That's
amazing.
Right. Let's move on. So that's
Yeah.
a good segue into the competition thing, right? So
Sure.
since we're talking about classifications, what are your classifications? Because you shoot, well, as far as pistol shooting goes, you shoot both sports, right?
I do.
USPSA and IDPA. Can you
Mhm.
kind of kick down some of that? What do you compete in? What are you doing?
Sure. So IDPA, I'm a master, multiple division master in IDPA. I think I'm up to 2 or 3 divisions now. Um, and that primarily I'm what they call enhanced service pistol or custom defensive pistol. For me, that's either a 2011 in 9 mil or a 1911 in 45. That's basically where I live. And stock service pistol, I think I'm a master in stock service pistol too. I was shooting a M&P Performance Center long slide 9 mil gun. And actually, the first IDPA match I shot was a classifier match. I walked up, shot it, and they're like, "Hey, you're a master," and I said, "Awesome, man! I'm gonna get my shit pushed in. This is gonna suck." So yeah, so I classified master there and had no really idea about the game, about understanding it, and in fact, I think uh, my second match I shot with Les Kismartoni out in Chicago. That was my old shooting crew when I lived in the Chicagoland area. Les and all those guys, and Les was there, and I will not forget some SO. I shot a stage, and I didn't use cover appropriately for their definition at the time, and he just laid into me like escalated voice and all uh, as I'm unloading and showing clear. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? He's like, you're an effing master. You need to know this. You're setting a terrible example. And I said to him, dude, this is my second match ever and my first actual match. And I remember Les pulling the dude aside and like, hey, man, you need to calm your tits here. And
It's because
so
IDPA is
that
serious goddamn business, man.
yeah. So
It's
I was
serious.
hot, man. I was hot with this guy, and luckily, Les de-escalated the situation, and we moved on from there. But so I started in IDPA, shot that for a while, and then I moved over to USPSA shooting. I think I started in either limited or production in USPSA, and from there, I mean, my love is the 1911 platform, man, the single stack 1911. So it wasn't long before I was like, oh, hey, you guys got a single stack division? Let me get in on that, right?
That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
like that. So, so yeah, so I started shooting single stack, and I'm a single stack A classification. Up until I think 2 weeks ago, I was top 20. Not anymore. Thanks, new classification system. Appreciate that. So I must be the only one still shooting it. So yeah. So
Okay.
that's where I'm at with that.
Okay. So awesome. Let's talk about the 1911/2011, right? And why when people go, listen, the future is now, old man, right? Why you're like, oh no, look at this, right? Why is that? Why? Well, I mean, I know you're a gunsmith, and that is, that's like the work of art, right? That's your hand built Ferrari and yada yada. But why? Why? Talk to me like I'm a stupid plastic gun shooter, which I guess I am.
For
I
now.
Yeah, for now. Oh yes. Stay tuned.
So here's the deal with plastic guns. Nothing wrong with them. I shot Glocks. I shot M&Ps. I shot CZs, the plastic CZs. There's nothing wrong with those guns. However, there is a point where you are going to be held back by your gun. And it might not be significant, but you really have to look at what you're trying to accomplish with a certain gun. So take your Glock, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, right? Great platform, extremely reliable platform. At some point, you will most likely outshoot the capability of that platform. Okay, whether it be accuracy wise or speed wise or something of that nature. You will be able to shoot faster than your trigger can allow due to take up or reset point or anything like that. So looking at that, you got to look at the 1911 platform as kind of a whole. Okay, so one thing a lot of guys talk about is, oh, the 1911 platform is so easy to shoot. It's so easy. It's great for newer shooters. And I don't disagree with that. However, this is how I look at the 1911 platform. It is very easy to get a newer shooter shooting accurately with a 1911. It is very hard to master that system at an extremely high level because there are things kind of working against you. We shoot single stack magazines, right? Which means our reloads have to be more on point than, say, a double stack magazine. We have much shorter trigger travel than most guys do, which some think that that's a good thing. Some think it's a bad thing. That's a debate. It really doesn't matter to me. I'll shoot a long trigger. I'll shoot a short trigger. What does matter to me is how good the trigger feels. Typically, guys want that glass rod break. I absolutely don't want a glass rod break.
I hate the glass rod break. Where
Yeah.
did that even come from?
I honestly, I could not tell you who originated it, but I think it's a misunderstanding of a technique. I get it. I see it attributed a lot to bullseye shooters, specifically on the 1911 platform, where guys take up trigger slack, get their sights where they want them, and then break through the trigger at that instant. Well, what I have seen, especially being a 1911 shooter, is that the glass rod break trigger causes more issues than pretty much any other trigger out there. Because guys get to that wall and they're like, okay, gun goes off now. And they push the shot with mismanagement or mistiming of recoil. So nice thing about a 1911, I can tune that trigger any way I want. Right. So all my triggers have a rolling break trigger. Going back to kind of the benefits of the 1911 or 2011 platform, there is no gun out there that is as accurate as the 1911 platform when built properly. So that's kind of a big thing, especially for me, is people can poo-poo the 1911 all they want, but don't come talk to me about how the 1911 is a terrible gun when you've got a $600 arms core in your hand. Okay, you don't have a properly built gun, so your skin is invalid. So, typically what we're seeing and the accuracy standard match grade, we've all heard match grade before. Match grade in reference to the 1911 is 1.5 inch group at 50 yards. That is match grade. I don't know a single human being that can outshoot that or really come close to that. That's essentially a little bigger than a 1 inch or a one whole group.
Yeah.
All those things make me choose the 1911.
Gotcha. Back to the glass rod break, dude. How many glass rods have you broken in your life?
Oh, let me think. 0. Oh,
Zero. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean, bro? Words mean things. Anyway, moving on. So let's graduate to the next thing, right? Where we got the modern 2011, right? And then we've got the next level, a 2011 with a red dot on it, right? So let's talk about the 2011 and some complaints about it.
Sure.
Right. Where does that mostly come from? Actually, it's the same thing with the 1911 as opposed to the 2011. They both have issues that stem from the magazines.
Exactly.
right? And I don't want to keep on rambling here, but your commander size 2011, that is your custom, your carry gun, your competition gun, yada yada yada. I've never seen that thing choke, and I've probably seen you now shoot close to, I don't know, 2,000 rounds
Somewhere around
plus,
there.
somewhere around there. I mean, a 2-day class.
Hmm.
You AI'd for me, and then we probably went through another 300 rounds
Hmm.
that last time I was out there, if not more. So 1,500, 2,000 rounds. Never saw it choke, not even once.
Yeah.
Uh, but what's your voodoo on that, bro?
Uh, it boils down to building guns correctly. When you build the gun right, the gun runs. And so, how did the 2011 platform get a bad rap? Uh, Nothing against any company or any manufacturer out there. The 2011 is an STI product, and they were putting out guns with the guns were well built. I won't say properly built, but they were well built. And they were shipping with magazines that had so many variances. Like I would literally order 6, 7, 10 STI 2011 magazines, and some of them wouldn't even fit into the magwell of the gun.
Mm.
Uh, the feed lips started tight, got loose at the back, or vice versa. Some were bent, some were, misshapen. There were gouges, everything was sharp. So, all these things affect the reliability of a gun. And when you have an end user that wants to go to the store, buy a gun, drive to the range, shoot that gun, never have a malfunction in 11 billion rounds, and bang, 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 throw their carry ammo in, throw it in their holster, and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want. That out of previous production STI guns wasn't going to happen. Um, it's much like trying to fine tune a chopper or a race car. Sometimes they don't run because you've messed with a lot of stuff or one thing is off and it throws everything else off.
Mm-hmm.
So that really is what happened. And I think a lot of guys, STI submitted a lot of guns to certain special operations units for testing and use. And talking to guys that were involved in that process, uh, STI knew there were issues, didn't either know how to fix them or didn't want to fix them. Um, their answer became load your ammo long. Well, when you're talking to an organization that doesn't make their own ammo,
Right.
you can't just load your ammo long, which is an easy fix. But the right answer was build the gun, build the magazines correctly, and it will run everything. So that's what we do. We tune the magazines. I set the barrels up correctly. Proper feed ramp. That's the other thing with the STIs. The feed ramp geometry is often not correct on the 2011 platforms, so we often have to change that. But once you do all these things, they run and they run and they run and they run. And I will say this: the newer iteration of STI guns are much better than they used to be. The magazines, when they released their new magazines, I ordered 4 or 5 of them, threw them in my gun, took some measurements, threw them in my gun, and I've yet to have any issues with them thus far. I could not say that about the old style magazines at all.
Yeah, they
So,
seem to be. I've shot the Omni and the TAC Ops. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. I'm going to say Sean, the new master gunsmith over there.
right?
Great guy. I mean, that Omni, which is their comped 9mm 2011 with red dot capability, that thing went through 1,200 rounds in 2 days. Never Never had a problem. And I mean, he was dropping mags on the Texas fine dust and everything, and that thing just kept on running and running and running. So, okay, awesome. So, are you giving up any accuracy or anything like that with the new specs to make them run, or they're just set up correctly so you're not giving anything up?
They're set up correctly, so I'm not giving anything up. You don't need to sacrifice reliability or accuracy for reliability, which most people would have you think you do, and you don't. The guns will still print that 1.5-inch group at 50 yards and be just as reliable, as any other gun. And what we've seen, at least in kind of my experience shooting custom built guns, custom built 1911s, 2011s versus, plastic unmodified guns. I'll use the Glock, specifically the Glock 17 unmodified, goes about 2,100 rounds before its first malfunction. Okay, that's with zero maintenance to it. That's pretty respectable. 21, 2,400 rounds, very respectable. A well-built 1911, 2011 goes about 24 to 2,700 rounds before its first malfunction. What causes malfunctions in these guns more often than not is when they're set up properly and built properly is not the magazines, is not the gun itself. It's often ammo-related issues. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like putting regular gas into a high-end sports car.
Exactly.
Things are not going to go well. Yeah, but bro, what about this? They're so heavy. How can I carry that thing? It's so heavy.
Yeah, they're not. Stop whining.
Yeah.
They're not heavy. I think I sent you a picture.
Yeah, but you got some special sauce on yours though. What's that all about? Can you kind of share what you're doing, right? Because what's your Commander size 2011 with a red dot and a light, right? You don't carry a light. You carry it?
I do. Well, I just switched over now with the Filster floodlight. I have the ability to carry a light, so I just.
And what's that rocking with a light? What is that? What's that rocking?
I don't know with a light off the top of my head. I actually haven't weighed it yet.
What was it before? It was 34 ounces, right?
34 ounces, right about just under 35 ounces.
So let's say 36-ish.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. How do you get it to be so light? Because I've felt single stack 1911s that were heavier than that. What's different with your frames?
Well, I'll tell you this: my single stack competition gun is 42 ounces. My carry 2011 gun is 35, 36 ounces. So, yeah, there's a big difference there. So a lot of it has to do with the polymer grip panel on the 2011 platform. That lightens up the gun immensely. So with that, there's also a lot of, you can do some slide lightening. There's places in the slide I can reduce weight. Often we're looking at trying to get like an 11-ounce-ish slide because that causes the gun to shoot flatter, track better, however you want to call it. I don't honestly, personally believe guns shoot any flatter. Just guns do what guns do, and if we can get mass lightened up or reduce the mass, specifically reciprocating mass, it's going to shoot flatter. Mm-hmm. Along with that, if I can increase or change the mass placement on the gun, I can get it to shoot flatter, much like the 2011 frames. I throw a rail on it that now adds more weight to the frame portion with a lighter slide, and that creates that separation.
Nice. Outstanding. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was shooting your gun, I think the first time, my main concerns were, I didn't have a lot of practice from appendix with a 2011, and was I going to be, was throwing off the safety going to slow me down? And it didn't. After watching your draw a couple of times, it was a natural progression. My thumbs did the same thing, and it didn't slow me down at all. What I do remember is, I think the first, was it one shots or the bill drill? I don't know. I think it was the bill drill that we were doing, and the elevation was perfect. The windage was a little bit off to the left, and you had told me, he's like, "Hey, bro, you don't need to work as hard with this gun," and I was like, "Oh," and the next thing was like, "Well." There you go. You know, at the very least, I don't remember the times, but at the very least, it was the same times as my Glock 34.
Right.
But I will tell you, the work was a lot less. Now, was it necessarily better? I don't know. I'm going to have to spend some more time on that, but I will tell you it was easier, right? But
Yeah.
again, you know, we were getting down to the 1.8x bill drills, and you know, I think we threw a couple 1.7s in there. In order to get below 1.7, we didn't have enough time in the day to see if we could push it that far. And the argument could be made: why do you have to?
Sure.
You know, why do you have to? But I'm sure I would love to hear the argument to motivate me to get down there, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you straight up, and I think we've had this conversation before when I was talking about my little party trick of outrunning slides on guns, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So what did you tell me? It's not a party trick, right? You are pushing your level, your ability to get there, which means everything else essentially becomes more comfortable. So you get down into the 1.7s, 1.6s, right? And you're really pushing. All of a sudden, 1.8s feel slow to you.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yep. Absolutely. Like 2.2s and 2.3s are, you know, can I drink a beer while I'm doing that? You know, no,
Right.
Don't drink and shoot at the same time. That's irresponsible, you filthy animals.
That's
All right.
right.
All right, dude. So we've been on for about 48 minutes now. We're going to get to the last segment of it, right? Which is the get it off your chest segment, right? So if there was one thing, hell, a couple of things that you wish shooters, trainers, the industry, instructors would either start doing or stop doing, what would that thing or those things be, my friend? Have at it.
So okay, I got a couple.
All right.
So my biggest thing, and Jose touched on this, and it was fantastic. Believing your own hype and your own ego in this industry is absolutely out of control. 100% out of control. And I know we've talked about this before, and it goes into that cult of personality, right? And guys start believing that they are this image that they've put out to the world. And, you know, I did a podcast on just on the ego. And, you know, one thing that stands out is guys start believing that they are this person that they've convinced everyone they are. And it's simply not true. Like, I can tell you, I have been in classes with individuals that would have you believe they are the next best shooter in the world. They will tell you, yeah, this is, you know, I was so and so and I was this. Here's my resume. If a dude gives you his resume in the first 2 minutes of meeting him, I typically just shut him off at that point because it's probably horse shit. So, what matters to me is, okay, show me this, show me that. And I've been in classes with very what are considered high industry level instructors and trainers and stuff like that, and just been utterly disappointed in everything I saw. Like, bro, you can't get your gun out of the holster and break a shot at 7 yards in under 2 seconds, and you're sitting here telling me how everyone needs to be able to do that in a second and a half. I just watched you not be able to do that. So don't sit there and believe your own hype that you are this amazing person. Listen, we can all get better, and we all need to get better. I am not the greatest shooter in the world. That's why I go to the range. That's why I dry fire. That's why I practice. I recognize the fact that I am not the greatest shooter in the world, but I'm trying to be. I am trying to work at that. So stop believing your own hype. Your resume doesn't mean shit as far as I'm concerned. What does that tell me? Well, I've been in 47 gunfights. Cool. What did you learn? It wasn't about shooting the gun. I will almost guarantee it. You might have learned the effects of the adrenaline dump. You might have learned about auditory exclusion. You might have learned about all the, physiological responses to a gunfight. But technique-wise, I don't really know anyone that's learned anything in a gunfight. Maybe something popped up like, hey, I realized I didn't see my sights until the third shot. I wonder why that is. And then they go experiment with it. But resumes and being in a top tier unit or being, whatever it is means nothing to me. Your number of gunfights means nothing to me. Show me how you shoot. That is what I want to see, because that's all that matters. So that's one thing. Another thing, if you've seen any of my stuff, especially the blog on the website, I am huge on instructor integrity, and I think there's a huge lack of instructor integrity out there. Guys that you simply don't understand enough to be teaching people. And if you have not committed yourself to understanding what you are doing and how you are doing it and why you are doing it, you probably need to step back and reevaluate what you are actually teaching and who you are teaching it to. There are several guys out there that are teaching straight up horse shit, and they know it's horse shit. And that's a problem. And some of them have been friends of mine in the past, for sure. And you need to step back and really assess what you're doing and why you're doing it. So that's a big thing for me. Outside of that, man, I'm with you. Guys should go to a class and they should get better, 100%. And if you're going to classes and not getting better and just, being told, hey, you need to shoot better. Okay, how do I shoot better? Well, you need to shoot more. Okay, often the answer is not just shoot more. There's reasons. I was on one of the forums this morning. Guy was, did some video analysis of a guy who had some issues. He thought he couldn't find the dot, and really, or I should say, he thought he was over confirming the dot, when really his issue started way before the gun was even out in front of his face. So, everything builds on everything else. But all the comments I saw after that, after, I said to him, well, you should look at this, you should look at this. Guys are like, oh, you're not following through on the shot.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What? What? Number one, what the hell does follow through have to do with not finding the dot? Yeah.
That dot's there's not there. I haven't shot yet. Why am I following through on something that hasn't happened yet?
Yeah.
You're not following through.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to be a gunsmith to figure out that that's not how this works.
You need to focus on the fundamentals. Well, what the hell are the fundamentals?
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, man. Everyone says I need to focus on fundamentals, and okay, what are the fundamentals? We know what the 7 or 8 or 10, depending on who you've taught for and what schools you've been to. We know what those are, and they're often given lip service, right? But often when guys say, I need to work on the fundamentals, what do they mean? They mean I need to work accuracy. That's what they mean. And that's okay. That's not the fundamentals, right? I work on the fundamentals every time I press a trigger, right? Aren't we applying the fundamentals every time we shoot the gun?
Yeah.
But they don't even know what the fundamentals are most of the time. You ask them, and they're like, trigger press. Oh, good, nice.
Yeah. Breathing. What?
Breathing.
Huh?
Yeah.
You know what I wish would be one of the fundamentals is only using the necessary amount of motion to accomplish the task.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. If you apply that to every single one of the fundamentals, grip, stance, trigger control, sight alignment, blah, blah, blah. It applies to all of them, right? Because here's what the thing is, right? Talk about the other day, and this is your rant, not mine, but we'll bring it up anyway. Is that there was a post on there by my buddy Jason Seehaffer, and we were talking about it offline. And I'm like, look, man, I get it, but there doesn't have to be a division between speed and accuracy. It all comes down to technique, right? And what I hate is when people revert back to, well, when I go fast and I become a frenetic shit show, I need to slow down to get my hits and focus on the fundamentals. Well, dude, all you're doing is using accuracy as an excuse. Stop. It's a technique issue, right? And if anybody doesn't believe me, go watch or get with Ben Steger and watch him shoot pairs at 25 yards to a 2 to 3 inch group. Right, in probably sub 20 splits. It's not the fundamentals, dude. It's that you're a shit show and you don't know what the fundamentals are. Anyway, your rant, not mine.
No, that's spot on, and that's again one of my biggest pet peeves is the slow down and get your hits, bro. I can miss just as slow. Like I can sit here for 5 minutes, press the shot, and still not get the hit. If I do everything correctly, it doesn't matter how fast or how slow I'm going. It's still correct. So maybe we should stop saying slow down and get your hits and maybe focus on doing everything correctly.
Yeah, I would even say when you get to a certain level of efficiency, trying to consciously go slower actually makes you worse.
Oh, absolutely. Dude, think about trying to demo something at 50% speed. And what happens? You're like, oh man, wow. Oh, yeah, that didn't go so well. Because you're going out of your normal level and trying to make it worse, essentially.
Yeah. Well, it's like we talked about this. I think it's, your subconscious go, okay, bro, sights are on target. That's the green light to shoot. What are you waiting for? Yeah. I'm waiting on confirming the rest of my fundamentals, or I'm waiting for the trigger reset, or I don't think I've slowed down enough to get my hits. It's like, okay. I thought the green light to pull the trigger was sights on targets, but you do you, bro.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Oh, man.
Awesome, man. All right. Any other rants? Any other observations that you want to get off your chest before we move on? Okay, all right, let's do this.
And you already mentioned it, right? The trigger reset thing. Okay? Dude, if I could get shooters to understand one thing, and it doesn't matter where you are, competitively, combatively, I don't care. Rifles, pistols, long guns, I don't care. Precision rifles. Understand this, right? Trigger reset, pressing the trigger and coming to this mechanical reset point doesn't do anything for you. And for all the guys that want to talk about, well, you press and you pin the trigger to the rear so it gives the round enough time to get out of the muzzle and you don't affect the shot. Bro.
Easy
you
flag.
Don't you don't know how guns work. Let me tell you. So if I could get guys, and often what do we see, right? Guys will race through the trigger, break the shot, and then slowly reset the trigger, and then race through and break the shot, and slowly reset the trigger. Don't do that. This is how I explain it, right? Trigger press is two directions, much like recoil. Recoil works back and forward, right? Trigger press should be back and forward, back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. That's how I explain trigger press to guys. And that, in turn, causes you to reset under recoil. And if you understand that, finding that mechanical point, that mechanical point exists, but finding that gnat's ass point where the trigger is reset isn't going to help you.
Yeah. And what if you shoot M&P? What if you shoot old M&Ps?
Dude, that was one of the, I was so disappointed.
Oh, it's marketing, dude. It's marketing.
Dude, like, guys, we didn't need this in the first place. Great, there's no reset. I'm cool with this. And then all of a sudden, oh, we built reset back into the guns. What? Why? That's not smart. Don't do that. But marketing, you're right, guys. Guys
And I
want
will
it.
tell you that MNP 2.0 is it's a great gun, dude.
Yeah.
It is probably the best factory stippling. Depending on who you are. I got jujitsu skin, man, so I like my stippling rough, right?
Yep.
It doesn't bother me, right? The way that the trigger is great straight out of the box, but then they had the reset in there, and I actually remember going to my local range. It's like, hey Scott, we just got a 2.0. Check this thing out. What do you think of it? I'm like, oh, this is nice. Oh, this is nice. Click. I'm like, sellouts.
Yep.
Good times.
Yep.
Times. Well, cool. All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay,
We'll save it for another day.
We'll save that for part duh. Right. Okay. So AJ, where can they find you? Give us the whole social media gambit. Talk about your training company as well as your gunsmithing, and let us know how we can connect with you.
Sure. So you can find me specifically gunsmithing and the training portion at practicalperformance.org. And that's our main website. You can also find us on social media at practical_performance_org. That's our Instagram. We do a lot more through Instagram than anything else. So that's probably the easiest way to find us. We've got classes going at least once a month. We're about to put out our 2019 schedule, so there'll be a lot there. You can also find us. We have a podcast called The Practicast, which if you guys tune in soon, you might see someone a.k.a. Scott Jedlinski, on a upcoming episode very soon. But you can find that on Spotify, iTunes, Overcast, basically anywhere podcasts are. And really the podcast is just us talking about shooting and getting better shooting. So those are the best places to find us. So go look it up.
Yep. And then in your classes, you teach the gambit, right? You teach pistol. You're only one of two guys certified, I guess, to teach my one-day red dot class, right? But you teach precision rifle, you teach carbine, you teach competition. I mean, honestly, you kind of cover the entire gambit there. And it's an awesome resource if you're in the Prescott, Phoenix area. So go look them out. On the gunsmithing part, right? What are your specialties on the gunsmithing part?
So my specialties are 1911s and 2011s. That's what I would say specialize in. However, I still do a lot of polymer gun work. I will work on Glocks, M&Ps, things like that, trigger jobs, slide lightning, serrations, all things of that nature. Your standard gunsmithing stuff. I will work on. So while I do specialize in 1911s and 2011s, I will work on pretty much everything out there. I've worked on Berettas, a lot of Glocks, a lot of M&Ps, some CZs. I try and stay away from the CZs, but only because you need like three hands to put them back together. But so yeah, we'll work on it all, man.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, brother. So guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm releasing these like twice a week because I've got about 70 people on my list that I'm going to be interviewing. So I won't go over my schedule again, but if you guys want to see where I am going to be, go to modernsamuraiproject.com, hit the classes link. While you're there, check out some of our preferred partners, which AJ is one of them. In the link, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see a whole bunch of discounts there, which AJ has one of them on there. So check it out, guys. Love to train with you in 2019. Hey guys, let's I'm not big on resolutions, man, because if it's important, you should have done it already, right? But here's the thing, guys. let's get better. Let's stop with the paintbrushes and butterflies and the smoke and mirrors and yada yada. Let's work hard and let's get better. Getting better is through technique, not mystique. Okay, a person's resume and their deployments or all this other stuff. Well, thank you very much. You're an amazing American, and probably have done more than I have. If we're just talking about the core competencies of shooting, right? Just shooting more might get you a little bit better, but understanding the techniques behind those core competencies are what you really need to work on. Find instructors that are going to do that. And I absolutely 100% give my seal of approval to AJ and his AI Seth. So that being said, what's the most important thing, guys? Be good, stay safe, get training.